Hi guys, it's Nick. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the boho interior design style. So if you're not familiar, on this channel I like to go through different interior design styles and do like a whole breakdown of the design style. So we're talking about what the style is about, we're talking about tips to achieve that look in your own home, we're talking where I like to go to shop, what are the benefits of the different interior design styles, who is this design style not for. We do like a full breakdown of the interior design style. So buckle in, let's start talking about boho. So this style is really defined by being unconventional, right? This is a style that breaks the rules. This is a style that sort of emulates a nomadic life where you travel and you pick up different trinkets and different pieces from your travels and your journey in life, and you sort of really incorporate that into your space. It's a very personal design style, and it's really, like, by definition, very eclectic. Okay, so let's go over some of the benefits of this style. I think the first one is it's usually, doesn't have to be, but it's usually very colorful. I see you all in the comments. Some of you really don't love the fact that a lot of interior design over the last decade or so has been really favoring neutrals, right? People like these sort of really clean white kitchens. Gray has been really popular this last decade, and people have been like, where is the color? Well, you know what? If you love color and you love that sort of energetic pop of color in your space and you want to see all these colors play off each other, boho is a really great way to do it. So by using this kind of design style and some of the principles we talk about and bringing them together, you can sort of really play and have a lot of fun with color. So if you love color, this style might be good for you. Another advantage of boho is that it's super eclectic and fun. This is a style that is very casual, it's very homey, it feels comfortable, and I think if you want to have a lot of fun with your design style, I think you really like boho. No one can say it's boring, you know? Like, it's definitely interesting, it's definitely fun, and I really love that about boho. And the third benefit of boho is that it's very personal to you. I mentioned this before, but I think it's really important to know that boho done right is very personal. It feels very, it reflects the person that lives there very closely. And I think that's kind of really great, because sometimes a lot of design styles can feel a little bit manufactured, and the boho style does not. It feels very like it's individual to the person, and I love that. Okay, so who is this style not for? Generally, I would say people that are looking for kind of really sophisticated, clean, contemporary spaces are probably going to not like boho. I also think people that are minimalist won't really love boho either, because again, this is about gathering things from your travels or maybe faking it here and there to sort of make a kind of cohesive look out of that. So if you admire really sort of really clean and open minimal spaces, boho might look really cluttered. So if you're looking at the pictures in this video that I'm going to show you and you think this looks like a cluttered hot mess, then I think boho is not for you. But if you think this looks fun and colorful and funky, then you might be boho. Okay, so let's get into some tips for how you can achieve boho in your own home. So tip number one is to really create a beautiful color palette. Now, this design style loves color. It works really well with color. It's a way that you can bring really random colors together and sort of break some of the conventional rules, and it still looks cohesive because it sort of has this unifying boho look to it. So you can be as colorful as you want to be. If you want to go for sort of a classic boho, you can go for something with really big, rich jewel tones. You can use emerald, you can use ruby, you can use lots of gold, right? You can use teal, you can use purple, you can use all these really rich, beautiful colors, and they're really sort of brought together in this boho style. But you don't have to necessarily use these big, rich, beautiful colors. That's kind of the classic boho that we all think of. You can also use really muted tones. You can use a lot of pastels. You can go incredibly neutral. You can just do like almost like a white and cream space. You can also go for like a really sort of masculine look. Go for a lot of like black and white boho. Overall though, it's just really important in order for it to be cohesive is to really define that color palette. Again, this is a style that is quite eclectic, so you have a lot of leeway here in terms of what colors you bring in, but I still think it's really important that you clearly define it because it's going to make the space look more cohesive and put together. Okay, tip number two is to use pattern. So boho loves pattern. So you can use like Southwestern, you can use Moroccan, you can use tribal, like for like a tribal rug or something. Like you can use all these really cool patterns that you wouldn't necessarily think would really work together, but layering all those patterns together is going to give you that really signature boho look. Again, sticking with the color palette that we talked about in tip number 1, but really layering in different palettes. So that can be rugs, that can be pillows, that can be throws, that can be in the art that you use. You really can get creative in terms of how you want to layer in pattern. But the best thing I want you to take away is that in boho, busy is actually totally okay here. So in other designs, you maybe want to be really careful with pattern. You may go for like a pattern rug, but you may go for a bunch of other neutrals in the space. But boho is really just about kind of pulling in all these things together. So layering pattern on pattern can work really well in a boho style. Okay, tip number 3 is to get personal. Again, like I've mentioned, this design style is really about pulling in those kind of treasured possessions that you have accumulated over the years and bringing them into your space and really showing them off. So it always feels really personal. Sometimes for me, if I see a boho space and it just looks really manufactured, I think it can look cool, but it doesn't necessarily have the same impact to me as when you see people that can describe, hey, you know, this is where I went to Morocco and I picked up this beautiful poof. Now, there's no shame in, if you didn't go to Morocco, I've never been, of buying that poof on Wayfair. But if you can incorporate personal items that you've accumulated over the years, that's a really great thing in boho, because it sort of really brings in that lifestyle of, you know, being a, wanderlust, traveling, picking up different items and bringing them into your space, right? And there's some easy ways to do that, even if you haven't done a lot of traveling. And that brings me to tip number 4, which is to add a gallery wall. A gallery wall is really a great way to sort of add that personality, but also really get creative with things like the frames that you use, or use some macrame on your wall, or different kind of art pieces, preferably something that you have found in your travels, but if not, something that you've purchased that you really like. So again, the rules of boho are quite loose. So if you wanted to use, maybe like a bright gold frame that has like lots and lots of detail, and then couple that with a very simple basic black frame, that can totally work in a boho style. You're not trying to get everything to be really consistent because it's eclectic by design. So bringing in different pieces, different art pieces, or different frames that come from different places, different colors, that can really work well. The only thing I do recommend is that, of course, we're sticking to that color palette that we talked about earlier. So yes, again, the color palette is loose, just like the rules of boho were loose. But I think if you want to have that really cohesive look, it's nice to sort of repeat some of the colors that you've maybe used in the patterns that we previously discussed, or some of the colors that you've clearly defined. Tip number 5 is to layer your rugs. So rugs are really important in boho because texture and pattern are really important in boho. So one tip that I have for you is that if you can't afford, or you don't want to do one really big large rug, because the bigger rugs tend to be really expensive, a really great tip is to layer a few different rugs. I recommend that they're probably a similar thickness, because you don't necessarily want to have it all really wonky on your floors. But I think having multiple rugs and layering them in a really cool pattern can really sort of create a little bit of dimension into your space, and it just looks really fun and really comfortable and a little bit different. Again, you can't always get away with this in other design styles, but in boho, like, it just feels very lived in and comfortable, and texture is really important just to really kind of warm up the space and make it feel really cozy and comfortable, which is what boho is all about. And that brings me to tip number 6, which is to layer in texture. So again, we're talking the rugs, yes, but we're also talking about lots of different other decor pieces or the furniture that you're using in the space. So this can be like cotton, this can be wool, this can be leather, this can be crochet. Like if you got a crochet blanket that your grandma gave you, like throw that in there. Like that type of stuff, if it's really warm and comfortable, that's what boho is all about. So you want to keep it really casual and just really comfortable. And a great way to do that is just to layer in different textures on top of each other. So tip number 7, you guys, is to bring plants into your home. So boho style uses a lot of plants because, remember, we're really trying to recreate or kind of emulate that sort of nomadic lifestyle where you're always on adventures, and sort of bringing in that outdoors into the space just really brings that life and that kind of casual, warm vibe that you really want in your boho space. Okay, tip number 8 is to use wicker and rattan in your space particularly. So we talked a little bit about texture before and how important it is to bring in texture, but also in boho, like there's also a 70s coolness that you're really getting from a boho vibe. And I think that rattan and wicker is a great way of really bringing back that sort of 70s feel. It just is really light, it's really warm, and it's kind of got just really organic sort of feel to it. So the other reason I really like wicker and rattan, besides just kind of its warmth, is that wicker and rattan can really create some beautiful kind of patterns. So while other design styles that we've talked about on this channel tend to favor kind of really clean, simple lines, boho is a little bit wild and crazy and tends to favor big pattern and tends to like lots of curvature and just really a lot of detail in its work. Okay, so tip number 9 is to really mix in vintage. This is a design style that really favors sort of found pieces that you have collected. So if you've been gifted something by, say, a relative, or you've picked up something at a flea market or an estate sale, this can work really, really well in boho because you can really go as kind of ornate or as simple as you want in sort of some of these styles. So you can really bring in sort of like a vintage wall clock that you've maybe found at a flea market. That would work really well in boho because it's found. It's something that is really personal to you. There's a little bit of a story there, and you can say how you found this really wonderful clock, and you can sort of mix it in, and you can really kind of go as clean and simple as you want, or you can start to really lean in some of these traditional or a little bit more ornate sort of design styles. So if you received like a buffet and hutch from your grandmother, mix that into your boho space. Like there's a story there. There's something really cool and vintage and found that you can get from some of these pieces, and bringing them into boho is totally gonna work. Okay, so now let's go over some of my favorite places to shop for boho, and my first pick isn't a shop at all, and that is for you to work with pieces that you already have. So I'm gonna bet that a lot of you have inherited some really beautiful quality pieces that maybe, you know, you were given or gifted by somebody, or maybe you inherited it somehow. Using these pieces and working it into your space is like a classic boho look because it's personal, it means something to you, and you know, it's just a nice, beautiful found item. And again, this is a style that is defined by being eclectic. So if you've got different pieces that you're like, I'm not sure this is gonna work together in a boho style, if you do it kind of in with using the tips that I've already discussed, you can work it into the design that you've created. The second choice that I have is to DIY things yourself. Now, I am not a DIYer, I'm gonna be honest. This is not the Sorry Girls channel. I am not the Lone Fox. I hate glue guns. Like, I am not a DIYer, okay? But you might be. So if you're handy and you like are the type of person that loves to take like an old, you know, bar cabinet, and you wanna bust out your chalk paint and you wanna make it your own, then you go do that. Like this is the style that is gonna work for you, because even if it's a little rough around the edges, even if it's a little bit maybe not super, super, super perfect, it's gonna work in this style because there's a story there, it's personal, it's a casual space, and it's gonna work for you. So even if you are a good DIYer, or I mean, if you're an amazing DIYer, then that's my second option, is that you can always create some pieces yourself, create your own art, and it's gonna work in a boho space. Okay, so let's now talk about some retailers, because sometimes, although we love to think that we have these far off travels to Morocco for that poof, sometimes you just wanna buy it on Wayfair, and there's no shame in that either. So let's talk about some of my favorite retailers where you can actually just go and kind of buy this look. By the way, I'm getting some questions on whether or not this is sponsored. No, this is not sponsored. All these opinions are my own. There are affiliate links in the description down below for you guys to check out to support the channel. That would be amazing. But this is not sponsored. IKEA doesn't pay me. I'll happily take their money. I would like happily take IKEA's money, but they're not sending me anything. I'll fully disclose if any of this is ever sponsored. Okay, so here's some retailers. So first of all, the retailer I want to highlight, kind of building off my DIY thing, and if you're like me and you're more of a let somebody else do it rather than a do-it-yourselfer, then Etsy is a really great option, because Etsy features a ton of really handcrafted products that people that are way handier than me are creating and putting on Etsy, and they make some really beautiful pieces. They're usually really reasonably priced. I mean, here's this beautiful rattan wall hanging that is gorgeous, and this person is charging $35 Canadian. In my opinion, they're undercharging. I would charge way more for that if I went through that sort of effort. Like, Etsy is not that expensive, and usually these products are handcrafted by people that, you know, you really want to support. So that has a little bit more of a story, a little bit more character to it than just buying it at a shop. Other retailers that I think are really great for boho, I really always think of Anthropologie when I think of boho. So there's these Vallarta ceramic planters. So if you don't maybe go to Puerto Vallarta to grab them, then maybe pick them up at Anthropologie. Anthropologie has a lot of really funky, colorful pieces that I think just really fits the boho vibe. Another really great retailer is article.com. I've talked about them on this channel before. I really love all their patio stuff. I've got a video specifically talking about Article patio furniture. I love it so much. But they have lots of really, really cool boho pieces, especially like things that are rattan or things that are wicker. They've got this daisy chair, which is really, really cool. So I find article quality is really good, but I find overall that it's a really tremendous value. So generally you're getting really quality pieces, but they're quite an affordable price point. Speaking of rattan, you know, I also really love IKEA. I've got my video here that I'm gonna link, which is my favorite affordable products that from IKEA that look more expensive than they are. And I think that a lot of those products that I talked about in the video would work really, really well for boho as well. Another really great retailer, I think, for rugs is Ruggable. So they're an online retailer, but all of their rugs are machine washable, which, you know, if you've ever had your rug cleaned, it can be a bit of a hassle, especially if you're getting it professionally done. It's a big deal, but you can just throw this one in the washer. So I think that's great. I'm gonna link to some of my favorites there. But again, if we're talking about layering different pattern rugs, they've got lots of different patterns, lots of different boho styles that'll work for you. You can pick up either one big one, or as I mentioned earlier, you could pick up a bunch of small ones. It would totally work. Okay guys, that's all I have for today on boho. I'm going to link to my playlist for all my other interior design styles. I go over different interior design styles. I do the same thing where I go in depth with all of them, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks, bye.